I'm Maria Menounos, and you're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
Hey everybody, it's Loren. Welcome back to another episode of the World on Fire After Show here on AfterBuzz TV. I am joined, as always, by Toree Weaver. How are you doing, Toree?
Yes, I'm good. Quarantine, I'm really trying to get in the swing of things from home.
Excellent. And somehow we've got this Christmas color theme background. So if you're already looking at that, nothing more than just those are the backgrounds we chose for today. We're here to talk about episode 2 of World on Fire. Now, I am a fan of history. I'm also a Hollywood history tour guide here in Los Angeles. And Toree, I think you love period pieces, right?
Yes, period pieces are one of my favorite genres to watch.
Yeah, so and this is definite. We've got so much to talk about. So talk about your overall thoughts of this episode number 2. Okay. Was this something a flub I did or a technical?
I'm Maria Menounos, and you're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
Hey everybody, it's Loren Kling. Welcome to another episode of AfterBuzz TV presents the World on Fire After Show. We're going to talk about episode 2 today. I am not doing it alone. I have with me Toree Weaver. How are you, Toree?
I'm good. I'm testing out a new backdrop today, so I'm kind of curious to see how the fans are going to, talk about this in the comments.
I love the red, and I've got my green, and so we are Christmassy colors in April. All right. So as both of us are fans of history, episode 1, we had a lot of setup with a lot of the characters. Now I'm getting into this whole series because now we're getting to know more about these characters. What were your overall thoughts about this episode number 2?
I mean, it definitely followed up the first episode really well. Like I said, I think we both agree that this series is one that doesn't hold anything back. There's not a lot of setup. There's not a long, drawn out episode. So they definitely came with the action immediately. So this was very interesting to see. And I think some of our predictions kind of played out, and we get to see some of those dynamics that we talked about from episode 1.
Yeah, I think what the big things coming into the beginning of the episode was Nancy saying the Poles have bicycles, the Germans have tanks. You could for episode 1, you could say it in one sentence. For episode 2, I would say everybody's going off to war. We've got Harry going off to war, Lois signing up to go to war. We had Harry and Lois exchange. We have Nancy, Kasia. We had everybody kind of setting up their little things. Um, let's talk about Harry and
Mhm.
Lois because we finally got those two back together and it wasn't all love from either side. We assumed Lois loved Harry unconditionally, but she knew more than we thought she did. What were your thoughts about that?
I actually really enjoyed how this played out on the screen because in the beginning, when in this episode, when they first kind of reconnect, you kind of think that Lewis doesn't have an idea of what's going on. And I mean, in the beginning, she doesn't. But after she meets with the little boy, she gets a better context as to what's going on and what he did when he was away. And I think it was just really nice to see that she wasn't as naive as maybe the audience might have thought she was. And because it just kind of seemed like Harry was still apprehensive about telling her the full truth. He didn't, come out and say that he had a wife or that the little boy was the younger brother of his wife. And so we didn't really know if that was ever going to come out or if they were just going to kind of draw out that storyline throughout other episodes. But it was nice to see that Lewis caught on very fast. And like you said, it wasn't unconditionally. She didn't want to just stay around because he was the only man that she's ever loved. She still stood up for herself and had her own morals to uphold her decision. And I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, and what's also interesting is even the mom knew something was up. She said, "I can tell, Harry, that you're lying about something." Kind of set up in our mind that people knew more than Harry wanted to say. The big thing with Harry in this episode, or another big thing, he gets fired from his post. His mom's, angry. What's he going to do with his life? And that kind of prompts him to join the British Army. And we see him actually leave his mother, who's now alone with this boy, Jan. Um, do we know for sure that the mom knows who the boy is, or just that he's not just a random refugee?
I think she just knows that he's not a random refugee, and I think she knew from the beginning, honestly, the minute that she saw them get off the car, she kinda knew, this isn't normal to just bring back refugees and not say anything, or you haven't seen anybody else do it, so I think she knew that there was more to the story. I don't think she knows exactly who the brother, is related to, because I think we've seen her react to other people's classes, especially Lewis's class, and I think if she knew the backstory behind where he came from and the family that he belongs to, I think she would have said something by now. But I mean, like I said, some of these characters know a lot more than we give them credit for, so I don't think I'm not sure, honestly.
Yeah, interesting. Harry, and so interesting about Lois. She wants to join ENSA, which is the Entertainment's National Service Association. It was set up in 1939 to provide entertainment for the British Armed Forces during World War II. So that's kind of her thing. We know she's got this background as a jazz singer, and I can't wait to share my news because I'm actually going to share some insight from Julia Brown, the actress who plays Lois, about Ensa and how her family's tied to entertainment. Um, uh, so let's move on to Tom, Lois's brother, kind of a ne'er do well. We really don't think he's got anything in him. Did you think do you think her brother Tom has any semblance of what's going on, if he's going to do any good?
I really don't know. And honestly, in the first episode, I definitely thought that he just didn't really care. He wasn't really interested in what was going on or didn't really care to be a part of it. This episode, I kind of got a different tone. I kind of felt like he's starting to kind of see how these things are affecting his family, him, and the people around him. And now I think that he might, go on to do some good. Like I said, I'm not really sure. I think honestly, I'm not sure if it's that he doesn't understand what's going on. I think he just kind of has this I don't want to participate in any of it type of thing. Like I think, we have people in our own country who kind of had their own ideas about war and things like that. And if they want to join or if they just don't want to participate or exercise the rights that they have. And I think he's just kind of like, I I don't want to be associated. I don't want to, put my hand in the game. I don't want to touch it. But I think seeing that this affects everyone is going to make him change that idea, and he's going to realize that he might have to participate to make any type of change or feel like he's making a change.
Yeah. Now, this doesn't feel like the kind of series where we're really going to necessarily watch a secondary character do wrong. So I'm hoping that they're setting Tom up to be a hero, to kind of become a beloved character who does good. And I think what's surprising is their father, who was in World War One as a pacifist and is suffering from PTSD. He's watching both of his children decide to volunteer to go into the service rather than waiting to be drafted. What do you think's gonna happen with him if he's got no one to take care of him?
That was definitely a tidbit in the episode that really drew me in. Because, like you said, he does suffer from PTSD, and I think it's something that a lot of people don't talk about when it comes to war and things like that. And like you said, just seeing his children decide to participate instead of waiting until they basically have to, I can only imagine the impact that it had on him. Because here he is, suffering from those experiences, and now he has to cope with the idea of his children possibly facing those same experiences. And I know, as people, when we care about others, we don't want the hardships that we've experienced to happen to other people. So I know he's probably carrying that tremendously on his heart. And so it was hard to watch, because you're a dad and you want to support your kids in whatever decision they make, but then you also want to protect them. And he's kind of, on the fence with that. And I can see, but I like how even though you can see that he was apprehensive, he still showed his support.
Yeah. It's interesting to think back to Downton Abbey and how that kind of spanned this general timeline, or a little bit before. So it's interesting to compare and contrast the storylines and the characters from that show with this one, the similarities in the way characters are written and the unique things that are written. One of the really unique ones I love is Nancy, the reporter,
Mhm.
because basically what we're getting right here is an update of what Germany's doing and what Germany's thinking through her little reports. So we learn from Nancy that Germany gives Warsaw a peace proposal. They'll bomb again. Warsaw is basically destroyed in just over a month. And the Germans, church bell rings to their counterattack. And they're beginning their propaganda back home is we are fighting for our lives. Do you find What do you think of Nancy's character? Do you think she's working at the behest of the Germans, or do you think she's going to get in trouble for her mouth?
I think down the line she definitely is, and I hate to say like get in trouble for her mouth, but you
Yeah.
can definitely see that her character is one that values the truth and value what's right. And so, there's always faults on both sides, and I think she's trying to highlight the faults on both sides and try to be as neutral as possible, but obviously seeing, the wrongs that are taking place. But when you work under a specific, headline or outlet, you're not really supposed to put your personal feelings into it. And I feel like that's going to get her in trouble because I mean, she's seeing it from all sides between her cousin, she cared for Harry, she gave him advice, the family that lives, I guess, across from her office and things like that. So she's seeing it. And I think that's definitely going to pull on her heartstrings and try to report as much of the truth as possible. I mean, we saw that any little thing that she writes gets censored. So I think at some point she's going to kind of get tired of being censored and just want to put out exactly what's happening, and I think that is gonna find her in some trouble down the line.
Definitely. She has that conversation with her producer, the minder, and the producer says, "We are at war, Miss Campbell." And Nancy says, "Do you mean Germany or you and me?" So exactly what you're talking about. We've kind of got this war going on between her free what she wants to report on and what she's allowed to report on. She did make that comment, "What will America do?" when he kind of got upset because that wasn't in her script. So I
Yeah.
thought, yeah, I thought that was interesting. Let's move over back to Warsaw. We've got Kasia.
Mhm.
Kasia, who lost her father, lost her mother in this episode, um, and basically decides to join the Polish resistance. Where do we think she's gonna end up? Her
I
character.
honestly don't know, and I think she might be the one character that, is a little harder to figure out. I mean, you don't really, I mean, of course, we knew why she decided to put her brother on the train except instead of herself, but her decisions in this episode, you're just kinda like, "Okay, what exactly is her game plan?" I mean, it's pretty hard to kind of figure out what's best for yourself and best for your family when all of this terror is happening around you. I mean, she hasn't even had time to cope with the idea of her mother dying, number one, and being killed in front of her, number two. So I can only imagine where her head is at. I don't know what she's going to do. I think we kind of see that she has an idea of what's going on. She understands the danger that everyone is in. We saw that when she made the decision on behalf of her brother. We saw that when she was sticking up for her coworker, the waitress at the coffee shop. So we know that she has like this strong passion behind what's going on and wanting to protect the people around her. Um, I just hope that some of her decisions aren't necessarily based on emotion because when she was going to, I guess, shoot at the soldiers that were trying to kill the Jewish man in the street, we can tell that was a decision based on emotion. I mean, we knew that it was probably a slim to none chance that she would actually be successful or that she wouldn't be killed right after that. And so I'm hoping that in her efforts to protect everyone that she also makes logic decisions and not just decisions based off of emotion. But I mean, we're all human, so that's probably impossible.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I would hate to guess where these characters are gonna end up at the end of the season, but I like seeing that we're getting their stories, how
Mhm.
they're gonna become heroes in their own right. And then the one that I'm probably not sure, I don't understand the most is Webster, the relationship with Webster and Albert. We know that Webster wants to stay in Paris. He professes his love for Albert. and they kiss and then they sleep together. But I'm not really sure where they're going to go, what's going to, what's going to happen to that relationship, more that it's going to be very much tested. What are your thoughts on those two characters?
Yeah, I definitely feel the same way. I'm not sure where it's gonna go. It's just kind of like, okay, what do you think is gonna come from this situation? We know the state of the world right now. We know that this is just not the right time or place to, be trying to fester a romance. And so it's just kind of like where I don't know, I kind of want to get into the character's head, like where exactly do you think this is gonna end? We don't have the luxury of just living in a bubble. I don't think any of these characters do. So it's a relief from everything that's going on, but it's also kind of like you want to pop that bubble so they can, make some moves and figure out what they're gonna do.
Yeah, it's interesting that we can talk about their backgrounds the least out of all the other characters. We know that Webster's a doctor, we know that Albert is a jazz musician, and we know that they love each other, and we know that Eddie is angry at Albert. But yeah, we're not really sure what that means, what's going to happen. So I'm curious to see how that unfolds in this. Any predictions for the next episode?
Um, I don't really have
And
a I
now,
don't know.
your
Okay. What
AfterBuzz
I'm interested to
TV
see in the next episode is
predictions.
definitely Kasia becoming a part of this resistance and just kind of like how that plays out, because I honestly didn't really see it coming. I wasn't surprised, but I definitely didn't see it coming. And I also want to see Harry's mom and Jan I want to see that relationship build, because honestly, I think this is kind of a second chance of her being a mom. We see that her and Harry's relationship isn't the best, or Harry kind of has these feelings towards his mother and the way that he was raised. So I wonder if this dynamic between the young boy and the mom will kind of be like a second chance of doing that, and kind of, just bringing out her maternal instincts again.
Right. Interesting. Yeah. So, all right. So that is kind of our discussion on episode 2. Let's move into a special segment. What do you got for us?
Yes. So our special segment of this series is Unsung Heroes, where we highlight people who have helped in wars and things like that that we don't really learn about. So today's unsung hero is Chione Sukihara, which was a Japanese man. Him and his wife actually wanted to bring Jews onto Japanese soil. His request was denied by Japanese leadership, but he did not stop there. So him and his wife actually took it upon themselves to handwrite visas for refugees to come onto the Japanese soil. It is estimated that they were able to complete at least 6,000 visas. And when
Wow.
him and his wife were finally caught, they continued to write and asked to leave. They continued to write visas on the train and threw them out the window so they can get their last visas to the refugees. And he actually left his official visa with one of the refugees so that they can continue the work that he was doing.
Wow, that's a story I'd never heard. Thank you very much for
Hmm.
sharing that. And then, as to news, the New York Post on April 12th interviewed Julia Brown, who plays Lois Bennett. Um, some insight into the character. The Bennett family because they grew up in a working class background, so they fight hard for what they believe in. We can definitely see everyone's got their very strong opinion. The dad doesn't want anyone to go to war. He's already been through that, and the other two want to find something bigger, something different than themselves. Um, what I found interesting, the ENSA, the Entertainers Corps, in the British military, they would earn 10 pounds, British pounds per week, which was a lot for someone from a working class background. Um, and then what was really cool is Julia shared that her grandmother Hazel was a jazz singer throughout World War II. And that Julia, when she got this part and started working with the producers on the scores and the music, recognized a lot of the songs because of her grandma Hazel. Uh,
Wow.
yeah, and then lastly, what I wanted to share was they asked her what kind of research she did for the show, and she said she read diaries of real ENSA performers to see what it was like to be away from home, what they were eating, who they were talking to, and then she tried writing her own diaries as though she was a performer. So I thought that was interesting. We hear about actors who get into character. So this is one of those ways that she wanted to kind of feel more in tune with what a performer would have gone through back then. So I thought that was a
Yeah,
really interesting article. All
that's
right,
super interesting.
let's wrap this up. Toree, where can people find you online?
Yes, you guys can find me on Instagram at Toxic Model or on Twitter at Toree with two E's. I'm
And
also on the
now,
Motherland
your
Court Salem After
AfterBuzz
Show on
TV.
Thursdays at 8 p.m.
Perfect. And you can find me on Instagram at Loren Kling, LorenKling. Also on a few more Mondays for the Better Call Saul After Show. From all of us after AfterBuzz, thank you so much for watching. We are the ESPN of TV Talk. And if you guys are watching on our YouTube video, give us some comments below. We want to read what you're thinking of the show. If you have any questions or any comments you want to share, any insight, if you're listening to the podcast version on iTunes or your favorite audio player, give us 5 stars. Let us know you enjoy watching and listening, so we can keep making more of these after shows for you. Anyway, from all of us at AfterBuzz, thank you so much. Bye, everybody.
Our founder, Keven Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.